Hello and welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. We are part of United Network, and we're also part of CARE, the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. Our mission is to bring you the real news, what is really going on in our world, because it's really hard to judge. You guys have a lot of headlines being thrown at you no matter where you go, no matter how much you're trying to avoid the news right now. Quote unquote news. I have that in air quotes because a lot of this is just propaganda. That's really what we're seeing right now. So you need a resource you can trust. And if you're new to UNN, we hope that we are your home for that type of information because that's our intention, is to bring you what is really happening. And this is not third-party information, right? We are getting it straight from the source. And so we do that in a lot of different ways. We have our field messengers who are people just like you that are literally sharing what is going on in their communities. We've got some great reports to tell you about today that contradict what mainstream media is saying. And that's the whole point. We want to hear from you. We are tired of the talking heads that are lying through their teeth most of the time on these various news programs. And it's happening in alternative media as well. So let's just cut through all the crap and find out what's really, really going on. Okay, so we've got stories from our field messengers. The team and I work on stories for you guys and try to give you some background behind some of the other headlines you might be seeing out there. And then we have updates from the Global Intelligence Agency, also called the GIA, of what's going on, okay? And we've got a lot of information to get to today in the GIA report. We're going to have an update on what's going on over in Iran and the Middle East in general. We've got some gas prices to talk to you about. And, you know, nothing is what it seems. And that's the toughest thing, I think, for humanity right now. It's like you want to get information, but you just don't know who you can trust. And we believe this boils down to your discernment. You can trust yourself. You can trust your gut. But that takes a little bit of practice. In the beginning, it may, feel a little weird, but this is your built-in lie detector to know what is true. And so we encourage you guys to tap into that as much as possible. And we're here to guide you along the way. If you want more information about United Network News and what we do, you can visit our website, unitednetwork.earth. This podcast, if you're brand new, this is a week in review. So I go over some of the top headlines and things that we've talked about this previous week. It's a great way to catch up on stories you may have missed. If you're not a member, I would encourage you guys to go to our website and look into that, because the information that we put out outside of this podcast, we do put all of our reports out on YouTube and Rumble, but we cannot control what stays up. Sometimes we get dinged for some of the stories that we do because we're just giving truth. We're not trying to filter things. And so if you want immediate access to these reports, consider becoming a member. And again, more information on our website. For this podcast, though, I encourage you guys to share it far and wide because obviously it's free. So if you need to catch up on any stories you may have missed throughout the week, or if you're just new to UNN and you're not a member, or you want to tell someone else about UNN, this is a great way to share that content. With anything, tapping into that discernment again, think critically, ask questions. You can still do your own research on a lot of what we're talking about. If you are just relying on mainstream or even alternative media news, you're going to get, misguided, basically. So dig deep, go where other people don't go to get the content. And we will be bringing you the latest information as we get it through both our field messengers and the GIA report. So let's get to it, shall we? Here are the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. All right, let's talk about some of our field messenger reports. Before I get to that, though, I would love for you guys to consider becoming a field messenger. We talk about mainstream media, we talk about alternative news, and really, we need to cut out the middleman. We need to go straight to the people who were impacted by this so they can tell us, boots on the ground, what's really going on. And so we have been doing this now for years, working with people just like you who are capturing the information for us. So the audio, the video, telling us from their perspective what's going on. And then we have a production team that puts these stories together and we put it up on the news. And we're here to support you guys in every step of the way. We've got weekly field messenger meetings you can attend. We have a group on Telegram where if you want to post some stories and get some feedback, we're here to help you every step of the way. So I encourage you guys to take advantage of those resources. We also have a field messenger app, which is available in the app stores now. And even just this last week, we put a call out this was specifically for our Canadian field messengers who, we're getting some reports of people needing to skip meals because there's not enough food or there's not enough money to buy the goods that people need. And so we put out a call out this week to our field messengers in Canada to give us their perspective on it. And so more and more, we are going to be announcing through the Field Messenger app various stories that you guys can participate in. So even if you're not ready to do your own full report yet, that's okay. You can send in 30 seconds about your experience on whatever topic, and we can incorporate it into a bigger story. And we actually have an example of that on the news that I'm going to share with you guys in just a bit. Okay, let's kick things off with the stories that were part of Monday's news. And Sophia, who is out of Trinidad and Tobago, specifically Tobago, takes us to this amazing surf community in Tobago where they're there not only to surf, but it really becomes more of a family, right? They care for each other. They are neighbors. They care about their local environment. And yeah, it's built around surfing and they have some competitions and some fun things. But this was just really beautiful. And it ties into another story that I'm going to share with you about something going on in that area. But if you're a surfer, man, this is we got some great video of this beautiful place along the rocks where this community loves to gather. And in this particular video, they also had a ceremony, which was really interesting to watch, of how they celebrated the life of someone who recently passed away. And they all went out into the ocean on their boards and just really cool and supportive of each other. All right, Emma out of Spain, another surfer segment, I guess you could say, another story about surfing. This is more of a personal story. So Emma knows this guy. He's an 85-year-old man. He's a windsurfer who she just came across one day. And I think they go to the same beach. And she's just been watching him and, decided to talk to him and learn more about what he does. This is a beautiful story and a reminder, right, that age should not be a barrier to your passion and what you want to do in life. One of the things I love that he said is he doesn't actually like to get wet. He likes to stay warm and dry, but he's also a windsurfer. I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny, but I'm kind of like that too. I'm a scuba diver, and it's not that I don't like to get wet, but I certainly don't like to be cold. So when I go scuba diving, I have lots of layers on. So I totally understand it. But again, a very inspiring story just about pursuing your passion and doing what you love to do, because that is how you change the world. You share as much love as you possibly can. So Emma, thank you for that reminder. Nathan out of Africa. Oh, this was a cool video, guys. And I can't really explain it. This is a video you're going to have to watch. But he captured a really interesting event in the skies. So it looks like there's 3 suns in the sky at the same time and that they're all connected. So what I kind of saw through this video, and it's a pretty short video, but you have the sun as we know it commonly, right? And then to either side, it looked like there were smaller suns. And then it looked like there was a rainbow joining everything. Again, I can't really explain it. You're going to have to watch this video to believe it, but it makes you wonder what's going on up there, right? And this particular event in his area took place on February 3rd. So I don't know if you guys saw anything in your area, but I think it's really interesting. All right, Amy, who's typically out of New Jersey, but who's reporting from Connecticut. Apparently she did a little bit of traveling here. She went to this awesome place. Okay, it's called The Smithy. It is a former blacksmith shop that's been transformed into a bustling market and cafe. And it's a beautiful place where local artisans, farmers, and neighbors can come together. They are keeping tradition alive. It's about community and creativity. Now, I have to tell you again, one of those videos you really have to check out. But my personal style for anything really, but I'm specifically thinking about homes. I love wood. I love stone, like natural stone, and wrought iron. So black wrought iron. And the Smithy had all of that. So the style for me was on par and just a beautiful throwback to history. Keiko out of Japan has a personal story that she shared. So she works inside a nursing home, and she shares with us what she has witnessed in her nursing home when it comes to dementia medications and antidepressants, and how this impacts specifically seniors that are coming to her nursing home. She shared a couple of stories that were really profound, like really make you think of people that came in totally, on all of these kinds of medications that really messed with their mind, totally changed their behavior. And her nursing home weans them off of this. And she is finding that there's a completely different person underneath, where sometimes people come in and they're violent or they're just completely blank, like there's no personality whatsoever. They forget how to do basic things like care for themselves, go to the bathroom, things like that. And it becomes a big problem. And as they wean people off of these drugs, these people come alive again. And it really makes you wonder what they're doing in these other care facilities where they're administering this medication. I mean, I hesitate to even call it a care facility, right? Because are you really caring for someone if you're just doping them up on all this medication? So a beautiful story from Keiko, a reminder that we need to get back to being as natural as possible, in so many different ways. And I realize there's complications with that. You can't just pull someone off cold turkey. I'm not suggesting that. But it's also a testament to how resilient our bodies are. They try to keep us down in a lot of different ways. But even after years and years of various drugs, and who knows what happened in those facilities, our bodies can come back. So it's a story. It's like a story, a victory story, right? A survivor's story, and a reminder of how strong we really are. Okay, Monica out of Romania talks about a new project. It's a tourism project that appears to be opening sometime soon. It takes people across 130 towns in southeastern Romania. And let me see if I know how to pronounce this. The Via Dobrogana is how I'm going to pronounce it. It celebrates nature, culture, tradition. Apparently, it's about 850 kilometers if you were to go through the entire trail for this tourism project. It's supposed to be completed in 2027. There's lots of ways to travel through it. And the whole point is to see places that are, kind of forgotten. And there are places to stay on the path too if you need to sleep there overnight. But it's really just about showcasing different parts of Romania that people don't always get a chance to see. Okay, so earlier I was telling you, hey, we're going to be doing more reports together, right? And I want to give a huge shout out to our field messengers this week in both the U.S. and Australia who reported in regarding fuel prices. And we're going to touch on this more with the Global Intelligence Agency report and updates from them because they're going to talk more about gas and what's going on in petrol. But our field messengers went out and said, hey, these prices are all over the place. We're seeing huge jumps. So the prices are rising sharply. This is based on what we're seeing in Iran right now and in the Middle East. And we're going to do this more frequently. We are going to be checking in with you guys and finding out what's going on in your area. It might be related to food. It might be related to gas. It might be, I don't know, who knows, related to healthcare and getting people supplies. We don't know how all of this is going to unfold, but their structure, their systems are dismantling. They are literally crumbling, and it's up to us to pick up those pieces and create something new, right? But we need to check in and know for real what's really going on in these areas. So again, great job from our field messengers. Great job to our field messenger production team who took the content that was coming in and compiled it into a story. You guys are awesome. Thank you for those updates. And this was another great story. So Marianne out of Mexico. Now, Marianne, I'm not sure if you have sent in a report before. Please send in more. You did an absolute fantastic job, and your voice is incredible. I could listen to you all day long. So Marianne did an amazing job reporting from Mexico on what was going on in her area after the alleged death of that cartel leader, El Mencho, right? You've seen this in the headlines. And there was talk that basically all of Mexico was on fire. That's what we were hearing in the U.S. Oh, it's all going to hell in a handbasket. Not necessarily true. This is why field messengers are so important. And she just gives us a firsthand account of what she saw. And yeah, there were some things on fire. There were road blockades. There was some heavy security in certain areas. But it's not lining up with what mainstream is telling us. That's why field messengers are so important. And I heard, not from field messengers, but I do a lot of digging online too of people that would be great field messengers, but they're just sharing their accounts online. And I heard the same thing in other areas of Mexico. They were saying, hey, there are some things on fire, but it looks staged. No one's harming tourists. No one's taking anyone hostage. So again, we need to know, boots on the ground, what you guys are seeing. So Marianne, incredible job sharing what was going on in Mexico. We really do appreciate that. Sophia, again, out of Tobago. So we were talking about surfing with Sophia earlier, right? Now, the surfing community and local residents are coming together because they are raising some concerns over a proposed hotel development that is happening right in that area. I was telling you guys about this beautiful place where the rocks, they break up the waves. They create this amazing surfing in the area. And I believe it's really good for scuba divers as well. And there's a lot of nature, just beautiful ecosystems in the area. They were talking about turtles. This is a place where I think they said up to 60% of turtles in Tobago lay their eggs. These are things that we have to consider when we talk about development. It's not that development is bad, okay? So when we talk about hotel development, you might think, oh, some big corporation's going to come in there. I don't have a lot of information on who is planning to develop in this area, but I will say there is a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And that was my biggest takeaway from Sophia's story, is that it's not about no development ever. It's about looking at this in a sustainable, economic, environmental way. How do we do this without harming the beauty of this area? So it's not don't do it at all. It's work with the community. Let's see how we can make this a viable project for everyone that isn't just focused on money, but helps the whole area thrive. I thought it was an amazing story. So thank you, Sophia, for that. And our final field messenger report is from Lewis, who reports out of Malaysia for Family Nature Day. So in his story, there were a bunch of homeschoolers that were taking their lessons outdoors. They had a chance to explore forests, streams, gardens, everything nature related. And, it just puts a different spin on what education should look like. And Lewis, I really appreciate this report because I'm a homeschooling mom. And it was a reminder to me that, we probably should get out a little more than we do and reconnect, because I don't know about you guys, but for me, when I'm out in nature, it's like hitting the reset button. So it doesn't matter all the craziness in the world. It just allows me, and I'm sure for my children as well, to reconnect and to remember what's most important. So thank you for that reminder. Okay, here are some of the news stories that the team and I have been working on for you guys this week, starting off in Australia. So back in 2014, Australia introduced something called the Health Star Rating to give shoppers a quick way to judge how healthy packaged foods are. So how healthy these goods are, using a simple star system on the front of products. But because companies calculate their own scores, so it's basically the honor system, also the system is voluntary. So critics say it can be manipulated, with some highly processed foods boosting their ratings through added protein or artificial ingredients.
Have you ever thought about how a product gets its health star rating? It's kind of like letting the people who make the food decide how healthy it is. Not exactly fair, right? Some popular breakfast cereals have a 4-star health rating even when they contain up to 25% added sugar. That doesn't sound very healthy to me. So what's going on? The health star rating system was created in 2014 to help Australians make better choices. But here's the catch. It's voluntary and food companies get to set the rules. Instead of giving us honest information, they figured out ways to boost their ratings.
Oh boy. Also, participation has been lower than expected, with only about 39% of eligible products in Australia carrying the label by 2025. So the big news here is the government is now considering making this rating mandatory. But again, there are some issues with this, right? Some experts argue that clear warning labels for things like high sugar, salt, and fat might be a more effective way to guide consumers. So we'll be tracking that story for you guys. Doxing is when someone gathers and publishes another person's private information online, such as their address, phone number, or workplace, often to intimidate, harass, or embarrass them. By piecing together details from social media, public records, and old data leaks, doxers can expose far more than people intended to share.
A lot of people don't realize how many times they put things on addresses, but it's pretty easy to look people up and find out information. And the whole purpose is to be nefarious. It's not just to have their information. It's to actually do something or try to get somebody to do something to you as a person by releasing this information. And if you want to know how bad it can be, just imagine walking out your home and having 25 people, number one, protesting right in front of your home. And that's not the worst thing that could happen. The truly nefarious acts is when, they start designing a plan to try to take you out or do damage to you or damage your cars or key your cars or make sure your cars are flat. All those kinds of things can occur and have occurred in these doxing situations.
Well, the consequences can be serious, ranging from identity theft and harassment to threats and even dangerous situations like swatting. While laws vary, doxing can lead to legal trouble when it results in harassment or threats. And experts say the best protection is limiting what you share online and strengthening your digital security. Zurich, Switzerland's largest city and a global financial hub, is facing an extreme housing shortage as population growth has far outpaced new construction. With only about 7 vacant apartments per 10,000 units, finding housing can become highly competitive and increasingly expensive. While rent controls protect existing tenants, newcomers often face steep market prices, pushing many workers to live outside the city and then commute.
Zurich's solution, a compulsory home swap. Here's how it works. First off, it only applies to homes that are in public hands. That's around 17,000 homes or 7% of the city's total. There are clear rules about when you have to swap. A minimum number of people must live in each home. For example, that 6-room place should have at least 5 people living there. Generally, there can be only 1 more room than the number of occupants. If a home is underoccupied, it has to be swapped. Also, if tenants earn too much compared to their rent, they have to move.
Limited land, legal hurdles, and slow development have made solutions difficult, leaving officials searching for ways to expand housing while preserving what makes Zurich such a desirable place to live. China is famous for massive, fast-paced construction projects, but that speed has sometimes led to what's known as tofu-dreg construction. Poorly built structures made with cheap materials and weak oversight. The term gained attention after the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, where many school buildings collapsed, raising concerns about safety and corruption in the construction industry.
This is tofu-dreg construction, China's poorly constructed buildings, made with foundation and building materials that are poorly mixed due to a lack of funding. That's because the project lead and management swallowed up money due to rampant corruption and graft. It's an ongoing issue in China. The result is dangerous living quarters and infrastructure that are prone to collapse, like bridges, roads, and buildings. In 2008, an 8.0 magnitude earthquake took many buildings under, including hundreds of school buildings, and many were tofu-dreg projects. It killed thousands of students and tens of thousands of lives were claimed.
Rapid urban growth, pressure to build quickly, and weak enforcement have contributed to structural failures, ranging from leaning buildings to deadly collapses. While the government has tried tightening regulations, ongoing incidents continue to fuel public concern about safety and accountability. Let's talk about dating apps. They were designed to make finding love easier, so they say, but many users feel trapped in endless swiping. Critics say the platforms prioritize engagement and revenue over helping people form lasting relationships, using features like swiping, notifications, and premium boosts to keep users active.
I don't know how much more clear people need to hear that dating apps are not in the business of helping you find love. They're in the business of making money. They're in the business of exploiting your loneliness. They're in the business of keeping you single because they need you to stay on the app for longer. Because the moment you go off, you are no longer a paying customer. You're no longer contributing to their revenue or their financial results, and you're harming their business.
Studies show many users feel disappointed, overwhelmed, or exhausted by the whole dating app process. As frustration grows and usage declines, more people are questioning whether these apps truly help people connect or simply keep them searching. While bananas seem cheap and easy to grab at the store, their global production relies on heavy pesticides and low-wage labor, mainly in Latin America, the Philippines, and parts of Africa. Large corporations historically controlled land and politics, leading to economic dependence and exploitation in producing countries.
Central America was the happy hunting ground for the United States. We invaded Honduras 8 times, and then I think we invaded Nicaragua 7 times, Guatemala 5 times. They would make this terrible mistake of raising the price of bananas. I'm not kidding, it really was bananas. Periodically, the government would go, we're done with this, we're going to free the peasants, we're going to give them the land, they'll get the profits, we don't need this old feudal system to be here. And then the United States would send in the Marine Corps, invade the place, shoot it up, topple the government, install a puppet government that would restore the old system, and then go back. And that's why there's the term banana republic. Americans just didn't want to pay an extra 10 cents for their bananas, and so we would go in and shoot the place up.
Not only that, but workers face dangerous chemicals, harsh conditions, and poverty-level pay, with past incidents like the Nemagon pesticide in Nicaragua causing serious health crisis. Certification programs like Fair Trade and Rainforest Alliance help on some farms, but most of the global banana industry still operates under exploitative practices. Trusting your intuition. Well, this means tuning into that quiet inner knowing that guides you beyond logic or outside advice. It's kind of like discernment. We were talking about that earlier. It often shows up as gut feelings, body sensations, or subtle mental nudges, helping with decisions about safety, health, and relationships. Here's a really interesting soundbite about goosebumps and what they really are.
You've been taught goosebumps are just a reaction to cold or to music, but they're actually bio-spiritual confirmation codes. Goosebumps are truth bumps. It's a confirmation when your soul hears the frequency of truth. Even before your mind does, your body knows and responds. So the tingling isn't random, it's resonance. Your fascia and your hair follicles are electromagnetic sensors. They pick up subtle frequencies from sound, from memory, from spirit. And when they spike up and raise, it means something just resonated as truth.
I think I got goosebumps just listening to that soundbite. It's truth. I hear it. I hear it. Unlike overthinking, intuition is calm and steady, and you can strengthen it by practicing mindfulness, journaling, or just reducing all of the mental noise. I know there's a lot of it right now. You got to push it all out. Ultimately, listening to your intuition is about trusting yourself and the wisdom you already carry. The U.S. student loan system is complex and constantly changing, leaving borrowers frustrated and uncertain about forgiveness, repayment plans, and monthly payments. As of early 2026, hundreds of thousands of people are waiting on decisions for programs like loan forgiveness, PSLF buyback, and the SAVE plan, while new initiatives like the Repayment Assistance Plan add more complexity. Now, I'm going to play a soundbite of someone who's part of these programs who really feels like this whole forgiveness is misunderstood because really, he says the government lied to him and others.
When we signed the paperwork with the U.S. government, there were stipulations in that agreement on what we can do to get those loans forgiven. And that was heavily marketed to us. Like, don't worry about this giant loan. There's ways you can get it forgiven. You won't have to pay all of this back. We weren't dumb, stupid kids. We looked at it and we're like, this is way too much money for what I'm getting. There's no way I can pay all of this back. This is ridiculous. And all of the colleges and the loan officers are like, no, don't worry. You're not going to pay it back. You're not going to pay it back. It's going to get forgiven. That was part of the deal.
Now, many borrowers feel stuck in limbo despite following the rules, highlighting the need for a simpler, fairer, and more transparent system for managing education debt. We definitely need that. Sugar alcohols like erythritol, xylitol, and sorbitol, all the alls, are marketed as low-calorie, blood sugar-friendly alternatives to sugar, but they are not risk-free. They can help with cavities and are appealing for low-carb diets, but they often ferment in the gut, causing bloating, cramps, and diarrhea. And some studies link high erythritol levels to heart risks.
Sugar substitutes may be killing us. I would avoid them completely until we have more information. I'm Dr. Evan Levine, board-certified cardiologist. Xylitol and erythritol are known as alcohol sugars. Although they're found in nature, they're heavily concentrated by industry, like 1,000 times. Now, you can find them in loads of things. You likely ingested some this week and didn't even know about it, like breath mints, sugarless gum, toothpaste, mouthwash, cough syrup, chewable vitamins. That's right, those gummy vitamins. It's frequently added to large quantities of candy, baked goods, candy, cake mixes, barbecue sauces, peanut butter, ketchup, puddings, pancake syrup. It's all over, folks.
Now, many people are turning to things like stevia or monk fruit as quote-unquote natural options, but long-term data is limited, and commercial blends often include sugar alcohols anyway. The safest approach is moderation, careful label reading, and understanding that even sugar-free, in quotes, or natural, in quotes, sweeteners can have side effects. Okay, we've got some updates for you from the Global Intelligence Agency. So Kimberly Gogan is the head of the GIA. She came out with a report yesterday. I think it was Friday. Yeah, Saturday as I'm recording this. So yesterday she came out and had an update on a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about gas prices. We're going to talk about the quote-unquote war happening in the Middle East right now that the U.S. and Israel and Iran and pretty much every other Middle Eastern nation is involved in. We're going to talk a little bit of history about the empire. What is the empire? We're going to go way back, travel in the way back machine here. And we're going to also talk about, you've heard the term shadow work. What in the world does that actually mean? Because there are shadow realities, shadow worlds, and it's not as easy as quote unquote doing your shadow work. So we're going to talk about that. Let's start with gas prices. So I mentioned earlier, thumbs up, kudos to our awesome field messengers who are reporting on gas prices. There are some rumors that Australia could run out of gas or petrol in the next 10 days, apparently. And this is causing a lot of people to panic, right? Not just in Australia, but you guys see in your area, gas prices are probably going up. This is also leading to canceled flights, because actually that doesn't make sense at all because it's not the same kind of gas or petrol that would be affected by this. But, you know, they like to connect the dots and cause chaos wherever they possibly can. So let's learn a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes here. And I know you guys are going to be shocked when you find this out, but as it turns out, there's a very large corporation that you've probably heard of called BlackRock, who is benefiting from a lot of this. And it's unnecessary chaos. Let's put it that way. Here's Kim to explain.
Okay, Let's talk about gas prices because, we touched on it a little bit in the last report, but I wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive. Our field messengers are doing a great job for the actual regular UNN news, where they are reporting their prices and the rise in prices at the pumps in their local area, not just in the United States, but from all around the world. So thank you so much to field messengers. There are also reports coming in that Australia, it may, at least from our field messengers and people on the ground there in Australia, where they say they may be out of fuel and as quickly as 10 days. Now, we've got a little bit of inside information for you Australians about that story. And yeah, nobody's running really out of anything, kind of. They are also canceling a lot of flights out of New Zealand and Australia and other parts of the world as well, basically saying that if you want to rebook, you can rebook, and of course at a much higher cost. However, thousands and thousands of flights are being canceled worldwide due to alleged rising costs in fuel, when most of the fuel utilized in aircraft comes from Russia, which has nothing to do with the Middle East. It's a very specific type of fuel, often called JP54, and nobody is running short of anything at this time. Now, an inside source in the U.S. That handles some of the terminals involved, let's just say this person, as all Customs and Borders Patrol, comes from a certain agency we know as the CIA, so this person is involved with that crew. He basically says that there is no shortage, this is for the U.S., that there is no shortage of oil coming into the country in any way, shape, or form. I have also heard the same about Australia and other areas of the world where they allegedly are having an oil shortage. Now, what he did say, which led me to do some investigating around the world, was that they are limiting the amount of refined oil, which means that the refineries are simply refusing to process oil at this stage in the game. Now, if you do a little bit of research into who owns the refineries in your country, including Australia and the U.S., you might find people like ExxonMobil behind the scenes, majority shareholders in other companies. Then there are shareholders in other companies. But at the end of the road, you will always come to BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. There is definitely something going on with BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard for sure. So are they the ones that are telling their refineries that they own on down the food chain not to refine any oil into gas or petrol? And is that really what is creating the shortage? From people on the inside, they're saying in part yes. So despite everything that's going on in the Middle East, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but it appears that they are kind of implementing what we call a pinch point or a choke point in the oil and gas industry. Now, Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, has often said you will own nothing and like it. You will see price increases. We're going to starve you out. He's made all kinds of comments over the last few years since the pandemic about basically starving the rest of us humans out, or Homo sapiens, I should say. And this is another way they can do it. BlackRock used to hold a very strong tie to the commodities futures market. The commodities futures market, if you don't know what that is, I'll just give it to you in brief. That is where most worldwide commodities are all traded, and they are all traded in dollars. So everything from cotton to pork to wheat to grain to silver, gold, oil, and other commodities are traded on this market. Now, this is a commodities futures market. So these are projected production rates based on varying companies contributing to global production. In this particular case, we're referring to oil because it's going to drive up every other market. So in the case of oil, we know we have oil cartels. We have something called the Seven Sisters, which was birthed out of Standard Oil and tied to Rockefeller for quite a number of years until the anti-monopoly laws came into effect, and they split it up into 7 main companies worldwide. But BlackRock, having a shadow of the commodities futures market that we see on the internet, has been able to own and trade the production of every commodity listed on the commodities futures market. When the price of a barrel of oil, for example, goes up on the commodities futures market, that is also mirrored into the shadow banking system. Normally, that would mean that the demand for oil is not, the supply of oil is not as great as the demand. Remember, I told you everything in finance works on supply and demand, regardless of whether or not it's gold-backed in a debt-based system. So in that particular case, normally something would be triggered and they would be allowed new allocations of dollars, very specifically dollars, and only dollars, because that's the way the commodities futures market works, to increase the supply of oil in order to meet the demand and regulating the prices. The same thing works for gold and for silver and all the other commodities. They say and keep telling you in the alternative media that the price of silver is going up, the price of gold is going up, buy, 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 buy. Well, I'm not saying that they cannot manipulate those numbers in any way, shape, or form. What I am saying is that the companies that stand to gain the most are BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. While all of those companies are basically Black Sun-owned companies and tied into the Nazi Party, which has its headquarters here in the United States. They are also the group that is behind the Trump administration very heavily, and they are also the group that is fighting the dynasty families for control. So they have been trying desperately for the last few days, based on the increase in oil prices and the alleged almost war that they also created in the Middle East. They have been trying desperately to leverage against the commodities futures market, and it's simply not working to get new allocations of dollars.
I guess you can't blame them for trying, right? This is not the first time that they've tried to do this, and they think they have these pallets of cash. They can suddenly cash in and use the funds from that. This has all been done 1 million times, okay? But what do you expect from a crumbling dynasty, right? Let's talk a little bit more about the war and why the Middle East. We're going to go a little bit deeper into this. We're going to talk more about Israel and the Greater Israel Project. You could look that up. I'm sure there's information online about that. Really, this is a battle between a couple different factions. You know, we've got the Black Sun. Also, historically, they are the Nazi Party, okay? And we have the Dragon families on the other side. And according to Kim, right now, it's really every man for himself. They are trying to maintain control wherever they can. They are turning their backs on each other. It is kind of a mess, and that is what you are seeing play out in whatever headlines that have any relevant information in them. So let's learn a little bit more about the current status of the war and what's going on in the Middle East.
I want to talk about a couple of key factors that are hitting the news and the alternative media as well as mainstream media, so that we can kind of understand more about the players in the game and why the Middle East. So let's talk about Israel. So Israel is still trying to implement what's called the Greater Israel Project, where basically the majority of countries in the Middle East become the Kingdom of Israel. They are also selling the fact that this could bring in the Messiah as a savior or a leader. They don't actually say the savior of you, the people, or even of the Jewish people, just the savior. Now, we have heard rumors behind the scenes of them bringing in more red heifers for sacrificing in the very near future, apparently. That was supposed to happen this week. But the Greater Israel Project is all about installing a kingdom under which whomever controls the kingdom of Israel, or the country of Israel in this case, from behind the scenes, whomever is still in control of that country would become the kings of the kingdom, apparently, and they would probably be appointing someone that we would all need to see as a Messiah. And I do not believe it is actually a source-appointed or God-appointed person or party or savior as we would know it in the biblical or religious sense. It doesn't seem that way from everything I'm hearing behind the scenes and everything that's coming from Israel. We all know Netanyahu is not the nicest person in the world and probably someone that most of you would like to meet in a dark alley with you as the aggressor, I'm sure, if you have lived in Israel and have been subject to the whims of Netanyahu. Netanyahu is also very, very close to a group we call the Sanhedrin. And the Sanhedrin has come and gone many times. The Sanhedrin, there are two sides of the Sanhedrin and the Chabad. The Chabad is known as a Jewish religious group that does positive deeds, that type of thing. And sure, are those people out there as well? Yes. Those are people that know nothing about what we're talking about today. The Chabad, however, has a very dark side as well. And the Chabad in Israel is actually closely related to a coven we call the Sanhedrin, as well as people like Jared Kushner. If you've been watching news, then you'll know that Jared Kushner is also the one that allegedly is negotiating with Iran, supposedly on behalf of the United States, and also Gaza and Israel, because he is on the board or alleged interim government of the Gaza Strip. Isn't that great? So interestingly enough, as his negotiations continue, Iran has more precision strikes than ever over the last several days. So I'm not sure what he's negotiating over there, but it looks like he's getting Iran to spend a lot of that Chinese money that they get from behind the scenes on bombing the entire Middle East. Wonder who Iran is really working for, and I'm wondering if the Chinese dynasty families know exactly what's happening. I'm sure they do. So next, I want to talk a little bit more about Iran as well. Most of Iran's oil investments right now are coming from the dynasty group of the Illuminati that we talked about last week. In this case, the dynasty that we're referring to is China and the Chinese. China has a lot of black investment funds, even though Iran states that most of its oil supplies are state-owned and most of the oil companies in Iran are state-owned. That is not true unless you're talking about the nation-state of China. They have a lot of black investment funds, a lot of front people within the country, including the now allegedly passed away, may rise again, Khomeini, the supreme leader, the imam that we talked about that passed away allegedly, which now may rise again. We don't know. The narrative says so we'll see. But China also has black fleets going back and forth, transporting oil. I have had video footage of them actually even taking singular barrels of oil on dirt bikes for $1 a barrel going across the border. into Pakistan as well at one point in time. So they're getting the oil out of Iran any way they possibly can, transporting it to China, where China actually refines a lot of oil. Now, you might ask, with all the large pipelines going from Russia to China, which China has not been paying for, they tried paying in RMB or Chinese yuan, but they have not actually been able to utilize that cash as of yet. And they're quite behind on their bills. I know that they're quite behind on the bills in Iran as well. Now, Kushner goes over there. He starts negotiating with quote-unquote Iran, Kushner being a part of the Greater Israel Project and the Chabad and the Sanhedrin that hails from Israel and runs Israel, which is also closely associated with the Illuminati faction we call the Chinese dynasties. So it makes you wonder who he's negotiating on behalf of. I'm assuming he is on the inside at this point, having married into the Black Sun families. So I am sure he is over there doing his good work for and on behalf of the dynasty families. We do have some other indications of his quote-unquote successes that we'll talk about some more. Meaning, has he been successful in achieving his objective? The answer is no. Is his either side, as a double agent that he's playing, has either side actually achieved their objective? No. And it's not possible for them to achieve the objective they're looking to, quote unquote, achieve. However, he has successfully ordered strikes on Oman, coming from Iran. There are strikes also happening from Israel and the U.S., as well as Iran, in places like the UAE as well, and false flags there. He has also been ordering strikes from there for free. Congratulations, Iran. Glad you're working for free. Appointing the son of Khomeini to be the next supreme leader tells me that the dynasty is still in force there. They are also have hit oil fields in Iraq as well. So it's Iraq, Oman, UAE. Obviously, there have been strikes on Iran as well. They've also been bombing the heck out of Lebanon. Basically, the whole Middle East has been fired upon repeatedly for the last 2 weeks. We know that Iran is still with the dynasties. Khomeini was part of the dynasty families. There are also rumors being spread by the Q crew that are saying that Khomeini has been found alive. Now, here's the interesting part about Khomeini, and I will repeat what I've said most recently, that Khomeini actually died a couple of years ago doing a ritual in Belarus. We don't know who that has been for a long time. Most leaders in the Middle East know that's not Khomeini. They have had meetings with the not Khomeini, reminiscing about times and say fishing trips that they had gone on together that they never actually took to see what fake Khomeini would say. I know that for sure from a particular prime minister in another country that absolutely came back and said that is not Khomeini. So the dead people are not dead, and they might be found alive. We're not sure. But anyway, the country of Iran is clearly with the dynasty family. Jared Kushner has told everybody in the American administration that he can get the job done over there. By getting the job done, I guess that means bombing for free, coming from the dynasty family so that they can get some money over here, because even behind the scenes, the Pentagon is saying that they're broke. The government is saying that they're broke. There is no war chest. There is no backup funds. And we are not in an oil crisis over here. We are only in an oil crisis because BlackRock has said to make sure that the United States is in an oil crisis, along with several other countries, to include but not limited to Australia and the European Union. On the other side, you have the Black Sun and the Nazi group. They are also continuing to try to leverage these contracts and do what they can on their side to try and get money as well. So each side appears to be trying to hold together a power structure and control structure and a crumbling empire.
Let's elaborate now on empire, because when I think of empire, I don't know about you guys, we have any Star Wars fans out there? I think of the Empire Strikes Back, and we know that they put all this kind of stuff in movies for us. So when we're talking about the empire, what in the world does that mean? Now we have to go, we're going to have a little bit of a history lesson here. We got to go back in time and we got to learn how these 5 empires, and there's different colors that are associated with these empires, and where did this come from? How was this created? And how does this tie into the Brown Empire, which right now is the most important because it represents the Middle East. This is why the Middle East is so important. So here's Kim with a little bit of a history lesson for us.
So in an empire, originally, if you recall, around 250,000 years ago, there was a peace agreement that occurred. It occurred between 5 groups in which all 5 got a specific area of the planet and a specific group of humans or Homo sapiens to go along with it. We know these particular empires as black, white, yellow, brown, and red. We know red people are often considered the Native Americans and Latin Americans, believe it or not, South America. They would also consider the brown people not of Latino origin. They would consider them of Middle Eastern origin in this particular case. The white people would be considered all of Europe, including all the way through Russia. Yellow people, that's the Asians, that's an obvious. Black people, I think we know the origin of the black people. That would be throughout the African continent. And that it pretty much consists of your empires. So they split up the Homo sapien races, so to speak, into these different empires, and each empire for a time was at peace. Now, I haven't really talked much about the Brown Empire, but I'm going to touch on that now because it's important to understand what I mean by brown. I don't necessarily mean in this particular case the brown people of the Middle East, although this is relative. You know, just because there are a lot of lighter skinned Middle Eastern people, that doesn't mean they're not considered part of the Brown Empire. The Brown Empire is the most important one to these people, meaning the Nazi group and the Illuminati group. They don't really understand why, half of them, but that is the whole reason for the Middle East erupting the way that it is now, because they're getting to the very end of power and control on both sides. At this point, it's every man for himself. There are no loyalties between sides. They're just trying to maintain a crumbling empire. So keep that in mind as we go along here. Okay, so the Brown Empire is actually considered to be black gold. There is something that is not far, I will say not far, from the Middle East, which was kind of moved somewhat to that location, and it's a location in Bangladesh. There is also a second location in India as well tied to this. And this was, let's say, the original piece of source that created Earth in the first place. And from here, all of creation was made. I wouldn't call it so much a DNA blueprint or a universal or omniversal blueprint as I would call it a source of creation. If you think of it more of like Source's womb, where all of creation could come from, that would kind of be what this would actually be, a second one, meaning a little piece of source here, which then created Earth. I would say from the beginning, a spark. It kind of looks like a pulsating light. It is gold. Its original one that is gold in origin. And there were keepers of this light as well, this special item. And this is an item they're hunting for desperately. They won't find it because it's not here anymore, which has made the empire crumble even further. As far as the other part, which is located in, I think it's West Bengali, which is now part of India. So in India, there is a second part in which they committed alchemy on this spark and then mirrored it to this location. So every bit of creation back to the very beginning itself was then mirrored out in what we call a parallel existence. One thing of source, one thing of, let's call it anti-source, or one shadow spark, or one shadow piece of Ethereum or Materium or consciousness would then come from the other side. And that's how we became who we are now, because we have more than one parallel existence existing within our person at the same time. So the parallel existences are where they operate. These are your shadow selves we hear about in the alternative media. These are the shadow worlds that we hear about. These are the shadow banking systems that we hear about. These are the shadow media systems we hear about. This parallel world exists and coexists within, or at least it did, within the actual existence of Source and reality of Source itself. So you see, we're kind of getting down to the base root of the problem here over the last couple of weeks. I know everybody thinks, well, oh, there's no reports, Kim must not be working. That's absolutely not true. Always working. So out of these parallel shadow existences, this is where the empires themselves got their power. Are people color-coded and according to their empire? No, not necessarily, even though you would see where the base origin of races could have come from. But that doesn't mean we are color-coded necessarily in accordance with our empires. But we, and we do travel about and we do move from country to country. We have, all colors in a lot of different places, but basically it's the place where you reside and where you are a citizen of that makes you a part of that territory or that empire. At one point in time, they combined or overthrew the leaders of the other empires to the point where there was only one empire left. Predominantly, you could say, that would be, well, the Black Empire. And the Black Empire, the Dark Empire, or the parallel existence empire that existed within all the other empires eventually took over everything. Now, the only problem that they have is the Brown Empire. And that's not necessarily related to the people of the Middle East. That is more because the black gold has failed to completely overthrow the golden kingdom of Source. You could call it a kingdom, you could call it an empire. In Source's world, it's the kingdom. In their world, it would be considered the empire of all empires if they could control that one. As far as they know, not everybody knows the secret. The secret being that even though the Illuminati created the parallel world to coexist in the Golden Kingdom, they do not know that they never could complete it. they never could completely overthrow the kingdom of Source. Now, you see, the Nazi group thinks they did it because they have lied this whole time. I know you're shocked. What would the Illuminati be if they didn't lie? So they lied the whole time and said, oh, they overthrew it. You know, they control it. And so now these people want it. Everybody wants the empire. The Nazi group seems to know that it began in the Middle East, or at least there's enough artifacts there to allude to the fact that that's where it began, and that would be the most powerful kingdom or empire they could control. If they have the parallel empire, then they have access to all the other empires, where before they were only gatekeepers, securities, and guards. They want the control panel for this kingdom. That's what they want desperately. And they don't just want the black gold or the brown side. They want the golden side. And they have been pushing hard. The Illuminati, on their part, wants the same thing. They both want control of the golden kingdom of Source, which, despite rumors, despite lies, has never, ever truly, completely happened. Did they manage to insert some things into it? Sure. Is that influence waning as well? Yes. Are they in full-on panic mode at this point? Yes. And they have been for days.
Cue the violins, right? For the deep state. Doom, 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 doom. So sad for the deep state that they are in a deep panic. But this is what they brought on themselves, right? Now, Kim mentioned shadow world, shadow realities. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into what that means. If you've watched any videos online where people talk about shadow work, they say, oh, you got to work on, your shadow work. And apparently this is like your background, your trauma, right? You've got to resolve this. And Kim talks about this and says, it wasn't just on you. What do we mean when we talk about shadow work? Because this is part of something much bigger. This involves other realities, other worlds. And it's like we put the pressure on ourselves, but there's a lot going on in the background. That does not mean that you can't help with the process. It doesn't mean that you can't help resolve these issues, but you have to know what you're working with, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about shadow work.
I just wanted to touch base on parallel existence versus parallel worlds. And I want you to understand what I mean by shadow self, because I don't think a lot of people on the internet quite explain it correctly. They tell you on the internet that you can do your shadow work and that you can be free of your shadow self. And I don't entirely believe that because it is not under your control. I think you can manage it somewhat to a degree, but when they have you on their target list, and right now the target list of people is anyone going against the empire, the outliers, the people who have rebelled, so to speak, to some degree against the empire in one way or another. Now, that could simply be you meditating, connecting with Source, and bringing more Source energy into your person than a parallel existence would allow for. You are now considered a threat to the empire because they can't have Homo sapiens being wholly not without a shadow self, because that's the only part of you they can manipulate and part of others. So they need you to have that. So they have programs running right now, like big fear programs and lots of crazy programs that make you afraid or make you angry, like these pedophile programs and stuff that they have running. I'm not saying that I don't wish somebody would arrest or even hang all of these pedophile people, but they are the pedophile people that are actually putting this stuff out. I mean, think about it for just 1 second. These people sell children to people that like to do bad things to children. That's who they are. And they're the ones putting the information out. Why? And this has to do with your shadow self. You know, we've all had life experiences. By the time, if you're old enough to be listening to this report, you've had some life experiences, and some of them probably were not pleasant. Whether that is a physical issue, meaning perhaps you threw your back out, or broke an arm, or had an injury, or had an illness. These things are considered to be traumas within your person. They are places where your shadow self can, I hate to use the word portal because that's probably not correct, can infiltrate into your natural self, because the wound never goes away. It stays open. There are ways you can close it and heal yourself using the natural part of yourself. Absolutely. But this is how a shadow self interferes with you. Now, you only have one true parallel creation self. That's one parallel creation dark soul, parallel creation breath, parallel consciousness. All of these things exist in a parallel existence that coexists within your person. They have only been able to create one of those. Only one. They don't understand why, but only one. Now, from a parallel existence, they mirrored that existence into what you call timelines, time loops, other worlds, everywhere world, anywhere world, like the Q people say. That absolutely is true. However, it doesn't really make a difference because those are like pictures. They are snapshots of the parallel existence. Parallel existence mirrors creation or creates the exact opposite. So if something is white, it could be black in the parallel existence. If something is dark, then it will be light in a parallel existence, and vice versa. But in a timeline or a time loop, it is a picture or a snapshot of the parallel existence only. So in other words, once a timeline is created, it can only take a picture of what is in a parallel existence that is constantly changing because it's paralleling everything that source does. It's also the way the more that we create in our side, sometimes it feels like the more you get attacked or the more you get hit. For number one, you're the outlier now. You know, you're someone for them to watch as long as they could have and could control a parallel existence. Their controls in a parallel existence have been limited. There are certain things they could never, ever control, contrary to popular belief. And I'm sorry, but right now it's not the time to say that publicly. There are other things that they could control. Banking systems, computer systems. You know, they have even limited access to your car to stop your brakes from working, to start your car, stop your car, turn on your mobile phone, turn off your mobile phone. Isn't that exciting? Because the particles that create your phone as a materium object also have parallel existence inside them. That is waning. So I'm going to challenge you this week, or ask you this week, politely, I should say, to think about what I've said about parallel existences and focus a little bit of time on yourself, trying to heal yourself. The more you heal yourself, the faster this will go away. I mean, we're going to work on it as best as we can, especially from a guardian position. We have maybe a little bit of override, and for all the people that don't know, but you know, and you can help. You know, people always ask, how can we help? These are things that will help heal things faster, including your banking system. And I know everybody wants that, and nobody wants it more than me, because I've been waiting a really long time to try to do this. And that has led us to all of these understandings of why we have not been able to. Next, timelines. They can no longer create new timelines. They haven't been able to do that in a while. For a while there, they were on autopilot, infinitely creating one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. But again, snapshots and pictures, only as long as the alchemical 5 kingdoms were overlaying creation. You take that piece of creation that they stole away, because we don't need it here anymore, and you put it someplace else that they don't have access to, then it's not mirroring anything now, is it? So these are the things that are beginning to happen this past week. But that bit of understanding I wanted you to have so that you can, A, defend yourself, number one, and number two, help the process along so that we can move along a little quicker and share with people that may understand what you're saying. Don't try to force it on other people. From a guardian standpoint, we can do certain things to help other people too. So we will move along as quickly as we can.
Okay, so now we know how to protect ourselves, right? And do this shadow work. If you have been thumbing through different types of videos, if you've gone on any, down any rabbit holes, you've probably seen other videos talk about The Simpsons. So you know that quote unquote family TV show in the US that is a cartoon animation that has been around forever. First of all, you got to question anything that's been around forever because that's not really the nature of the entertainment industry. But you've probably seen videos where this show has quote unquote predicted various events. Okay, so you can trace back episodes coming out of this show, and it has predicted things like Hillary Clinton losing the presidency and various things. I think there were some things about Charlie Kirk, and I don't know. I don't watch the show. It actually drives me crazy. I've never really watched the show on a regular basis, but I'm familiar because these clips keep popping up online. So apparently, this is very timely because there is stuff going on, and you can search for it online. But there is this rumor going around that The Simpsons have predicted that Donald Trump is going to die on March 14th, which is today as I am recording this. Do we think this is going to happen? Probably not, because according to Kim, behind the scenes, they don't really appear to be organizing much. Now, these Nazis are also known for being, kind of cowboyish and doing things on the fly. So that doesn't mean it's absolutely not going to happen. But if it is predictive programming, right? And we know for a while that they have wanted to change things up, that they feel like things aren't really going, obviously, their way. So who knows what's going to happen? But I do find it interesting. I noticed about a week ago, I was on Netflix, and Netflix has this series right now promoting the creation of The Simpsons. Now, even though I don't like The Simpsons, I know about their predictive programming and, how they have to kind of tell us things that they're doing behind the scenes. This is one way they do that. So I don't really follow it, but I thought I would watch part of this series to learn about at least what their story is of how The Simpsons was created. So I find it very interesting that Netflix is promoting this whole thing with The Simpsons. It's like they're trying to put it out there for us. They want us to grab onto it. Who knows what they'll end up doing with it. But as of, this afternoon, I have not heard of President Trump dying. So who knows what they're going to do, but they're definitely up to something. Maybe they just want to see if people start talking about it and we make it happen for them. I don't know. These people are really hard to predict because, quite frankly, they're crazy. All right, so that is the rundown for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in and being with us again. I encourage you guys to visit our website to learn more about us, perhaps even become a member. If you do, you get instant access to all of the content that we put out there. And also gives you access to our online community. There's a lot of chitter chatter going on in there. We try to support each other and lift each other up. And again, just a quick reminder, I know there's a lot coming at you right now. Even if you try to avoid headlines, it's going to somehow appear, even when you don't want it to. But understand that you have to get rid of the noise as much as possible. I'm not saying don't be, in the know about what's happening. Just don't let it guide your day. Find time to do the things that make you happy, because that's how we come against this evil right now. You have to do it through love. That's the only way. So that's my little PSA for this week. And I'm going to go ahead and take my own advice and take some time away from the computer and go spend some time with my family. So thanks for listening, everyone. This is The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.